I just got back from the Wally Parks NSRA Nostalgia Drags in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and oh man, was it a hoot. Did it bring back some great memories. Being at an event like that, how can you not get inspired to build a nostalgia dragster? So when Revell come out with this 70 Duster, which I've built a million times in my lifetime as different stuff, I just had to have this kit. Anyway, let's get this thing opened up, and I'm going to show you how this builds up. All right, let's go through this Duster Funny Car. Instructions talk a little bit about it. Again, typical Revell instructions. Each part tells you what it is at each number. We'll see that here in a minute in the instructions. This is what makes these kits buildable for any age. We're looking at about 77 parts, so it's not a high parts count kit. Here's the engine. The engine builds up very simple, very easy. Represents an actual engine. It looks very nice when it's put together. There's the frame. Put that together. Or the chassis. Looks like we might have a real rubber belt for the blower. Putting the engine into the chassis. Pretty basic instructions, easy to read, easy to follow. But this is definitely a blast from the past. This kit's been out numerous times in different ways. Love a Duster dragster, especially a funny car. Looks like we can display it up. And you got your police stuff that goes on top, or fire stuff that goes on top, your siren and lights. And decal placement. Speaking of decals, what we got for decals? These decals are nice. Love the flames. Flashpoint. Very cool looking. Very nice. Very nice decal sheet. The body has always been a nice body that represents a Duster. Like I said, I've built several of these in my lifetime. And there's never been a complaint with this Duster body. You can't go wrong with this. Beautiful lines. Represents a Duster funny car body very well. Front end. Just gorgeous body all the way around. I mean, even if you don't want to build this as the old cop out with the lights on it, or the fire breathing one now as Flashpoint, or whatever. I mean, this is worth it right here. This body. You can, of course, on a funny car, you can build it any way you want with whatever you want on the side. But there's your inside pan. Of course, it'll go in there like that. Very nice. Your wheels, steering wheel. Very nice. There's your hat. Suspension parts, everything's here. Represent a very nice nostalgia funny car. Very cool. Rear suspension, valve covers, front wheels. It's nice. Remember that rubber belt I was telling you about? Here it is. There's a rubber belt for the blower, which is a nice addition. Of course, obviously the molded in belts on blowers are always out of scale. What else we got here? Okay, engine blocks obviously. Interior. Rear end. It's an older kit, but again, it represents back in the day how these nostalgia funny cars were. Nostalgia now. Well, they sure weren't nostalgia back in the day when we were building these. But again, this builds up as a very nice kit, guys. Highly recommend this kit. Glass. It's clear, which is nice. Got to have a clear front windshield for sure. The glass is thin, very clear. Now let's check out the tires. This is the only beef that people have about the tires. They love how it's wrinkled one way, but it's wrinkled that same way on the other side, which has never ever bothered me, and I'm going to tell you why. When you have the model sitting on the shelf or at a show, it's only sitting one way, and whatever way you're going to display it, put your wrinkle correctly. That's how I've always been. I've never had a problem with these. These actually build up as very, very nice slicks. There's your front tires. And this is the way it was back in the day, guys. Very cool kit. So glad Revell came out with this. Love building this kit. And like I said, I've built probably 10 of these in my lifetime, and they've all been different funny cars. But really looking forward to building this. Yep, 1970. This is a blast from the past, and actually builds up to be a very accurate drag car. I started off working on the chassis, and this is my favorite tool to do a lot of sanding because it gets in between all them little spots. It's a flexophile. Man, those things are great. If you don't have one for your workbench, you got to check them out. They definitely get the job done. Next, I turn to the headers. Opening up the headers. Got to get them holes drilled out and opened up. Really adds the realism. There's one with it done, and one that I'm getting ready to start on. Oh yeah, there they are, both done. Started gluing some halves together. Got to get that engine going. And now I'm starting on my chrome. I'm getting ready to de-chrome all those parts. Sanded the mold lines and getting them ready for the purple pond. I've always thought that sanding the mold lines on my chrome parts before I throw them into the purple pond always worked out a lot better for me. And there's what I use to de-chrome everything. That's why I call it the purple pond, because it's purple power. I stick my parts in the container, pour it in, and in probably an hour, 2-3 hours, I'll have parts that are de-chromed. Kind of all depends on the kit and the chrome they use. Next, I started on the body, getting all the mold lines sanded on the body and getting that prepared for paint. Didn't take long. The mold lines are pretty easy on this one. And I decided to take it outside and spray bomb this one. There's the paint I used. That was coat number 1. There's coat number 2, and it's a gloomy day outside. Coat number 3, and it's very humid out also. And coat number 4. This thing turned out really nice. There she is with 4 coats of paint. I didn't think it turned out too bad for a gloomy, very humid day. There's the color I used, Revving Red. Love that paint. Well, anyway, while the body was drying, turned my attention to building the chassis. Chassis goes together very well if you just take your time and go piece by piece by piece. Laid everything out. And I start up front with that cross member. Get those 2 pieces glued in, and then you can get it standing up. Give them a little time to dry, and I can start putting my back pieces in. And that bottom piece kind of brings everything together. The pan, kind of like a bridge. But the chassis builds up great. There's the paint I like to use to do aluminum. It's chrome silver. It doesn't really come out chrome. Very humble, but I like it for aluminum. Tires and wheels, or the tires I should say. I went ahead and went with the kit tires. I know a lot of guys don't like these, but I used them. I think they come out all right. If you work on them with a little super glue and a sanding stick, there's one on the left that's done. You can get them to turn out really nice. Headers, they got painted with the primer white from Tamiya. I like using that color and that paint on my headers on all my builds. Back to the purple pond, a couple hours later, bingo, those parts are done. Works out pretty good. Get the parts all cleaned up, laid out, see what we got. Oh, I got to glue them halves together. Get them glued together. And we're getting these things ready for paint. There's the other parts I painted. Kind of a little bench update here where I'm at. Got a lot going on. There's those parts all painted, and then once they're painted with that Humbrol paint, then I go in with some other colors and detail them while they're still on the sticks. And after they get dry, then I can de-stick them. That's a word or a sentence or a saying. I don't know. Back to the chassis. Painted it with just the Tamiya TS14 black. Dries fast. Works great. I love that Tamiya paint. Back to the headers. Speaking of paint, jab a little black paint into the header holes that I drilled. Now the body. There's my paint stand. I know a lot of people will ask, what paint stand do you have? It's just a homemade paint stand. 2x4 block of wood, 4 holes drilled, 4 rods sticking out, bent, and the rod swivel to accept any size of body. Works out great. Little homemade stand I just take outside. There it is without the body on, so you can see how it swivels and works. Love that little stand. The decals. I've been going back and forth on this kit. I think I'm just going to go with the flames and the Flashpoint. I'm a flame junkie. Love those flames. I'm not going to go with the light bar, I've decided. I think I got another project I'm going to put up that light bar on. Now to the underneath of the body. I just grabbed a gray that I liked and I started painting the underneath. There's the gray I used, XF64 was it? You can use pretty much any gray or black to get that underneath painted. Decal time, after the underneath was painted, I start laying my decals out, getting them put on. Those laid down flawlessly. No decal setting solution, no nothing. Just some nice warm water. Lay them in. For about 15 seconds, pull them out and slide them on, and they went on great. Very nice decals. Got into my decal stash. That's the sheet I used. Pulled out a few contingency decals. And right there up front, that Crane Cams, Winds, Valvoline. There's my carnage of all what's left over from the decals. But adding those little extra decals was a fun touch. If you don't have this weathering set, you need to get it. It's a Tamiya weathering set. Look like little makeup cases. I love these things. Use them all the time on different weathering projects. The soot is what I like to use on all my headers. There I add a little bit of soot on the right header. The left one doesn't have the soot on there yet. Love that little Tamiya weathering set. Now for the clear. I went ahead and cleared over the decals after about a day or so when them decals are dry. Again, I just walked outside and shot that thing clear. I got 4 coats of clear on that thing. There it is. No rubbing, no buffing, no nothing. I didn't even rub or buff out the paint. There's the clear I use. I love that clear. It's hard to beat out of a spray can. Love it. And I did not rub or buff or anything on that body. Didn't even wax it. Nothing. That's just straight out of the can. 4 coats right there. Put that to the side, let it dry, back to the chassis, getting that thing, getting the engine and everything put in. Again, it builds up great if you just take your time and let things dry as you put them on. Steering linkage, the linkage on the front end, everything goes together flawlessly on this thing. The fit's wonderful. Glass, here's a nice tip. I always tape in my glass windshields on any build, and that's the glue I like to use for glass. Love that glue. I imagine you can use about any white glue, but that dries crystal clear. And there's the finished product. This was a fun build. Again, this is a blast from the past. It's been out numerous times, mainly as the cop out. This Flashpoint is wonderful. Again, I'm a flame junkie, and pretty much anyone can build this thing. I mean, I was building this thing in the 70s as a kid. The only thing I did wrong back then is I always rushed it and always had a hard time, but I learned over the years, if you take your time on that chassis, glue something on, let it dry for 10 or 15 minutes, glue something else on, the thing goes together wonderful. Revell, I want to thank you for sending me this kit to build, because I absolutely love this kit and highly recommend it. I think you guys will like this kit too. We'll see you guys on the next video on Throttle Power.